Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you to everybody at ZKM, one of the greatest institutions in the world, clearly, and happy 30th birthday. I'm also celebrating not a birthday, certainly not my 30th birthday, but my 30th anniversary as someone consciously making art. I was probably unconsciously making art before, but it was in 1989 here in Germany that I decided I am an artist and I will find the type of truths or come as close to the type of truths that I wanted to come close to through art. 1989 to 2019. So I was studying microbiology and cognitive science, and my father, who was living in Los Angeles at the time, who's German, birthday today, he had a brain tumor. So I had to leave school to be by his side. I'm an only child, and take care of him for a short time. It was successful. He was left with a little Bell's palsy, a paralysis of the face, but otherwise he was okay. And it happened to coincide with a period where I realized that through science and technology, I was not coming as close to truths about the universe, about myself, as I would like to. And my few forays in college into art and photography in particular, I found that I was somehow learning more about myself, and I thought I was also learning more about the universe. So I had this dilemma, and I thought I need to investigate this further. I had photographed my fellow classmates, and at this moment, and many moments in my life, I struggled to find that line between where I end and you begin, or where you end and I begin. This experience is heightened when I'm behind a camera and I have an object in front of me, and I refer to humans as objects as well. So human objects and non-human objects I use as proxies to understand, like was noted in the opening, higher concepts, and to distill emotional value. So it's faces that I was drawn to, and when I photograph faces, it's not so much about the subject as it is, again, using the face as a proxy for the shared human experience. So some of these faces are known, like Malala. That's just an old guy who likes a drink in Ireland. And actually, he was a well-known musician. And so you see, some of these faces are faces of celebrities. And as an early artist, photographing celebrities, I was concerned that people wouldn't take me seriously as an artist. But you know what? I was in Hollywood, and celebrities were the autochthonous species, the native species. If I grew up in Churchill, Manitoba, in Canada, I would be probably photographing polar bears. But I came to realize that I need to not bury this work, but embrace it. And my treatment of the subject has never really changed. And I use objects in the same way. I use objects to confuse that line of where I end and where they begin. I'll show you a few of them here. And this work, this photographic work, I'd been doing from basically 1989 until today. So that's quite a while. And there have been times where I step away from it. And here's an interesting thing, is there have been times where I walk away from this practice of employing photography as a method to make art, and my life falls apart for reasons I don't fully understand. And I don't question it because I don't have the time to question it. But I know if I move away from creating, in fact, I would say it's an internal obligation. people say sometimes, oh, it's great that you're so passionate about your work, and I don't see it as a passion, really. It's an internal obligation that I have to do to remain sane. I'm sure you hear a lot of artists say it's like therapy. So this is all leading up to a moment that had a great impact on me in the last few years. This work is called Potato number 345. It was made in 2010, and my work is for sale. I didn't come up through the gallery system. My work exists in a number of institutions, museums, but this in late 2015, it sold to a collector in Europe for a substantial amount of money, which is great because I've got to feed my family. I'm not opposed to it. But what happened after that was, in the immediate aftermath, a month, 2 months of intense media scrutiny, thousands and thousands of emails, wonderful emails. I mean, some of them, I'll share a couple little stories. Well, some of them were like, congratulations, you fucking hack, or you suck, or think about all the starving people in the world, fuck you, variations on that theme. But more and more were positive. My favorite, actually, is a woman who wrote to me, and first off, I never knew that there were so many potatoes in the shape of a heart. I received hundreds of photographs of potatoes from around the world that were in heart shape. People thought that I should see that stuff. And then they would say, by the way, maybe the guy who bought your work would like to buy, this, and I sell for only $500,000, and I give you a cut of that, very, very generous. And this woman said to me that when I saw the story about your potato, it reminded me of a potato that my husband and I kept. We kept it in our freezer in the shape of a heart. And it's been a bad year, and my husband passed away. And then money wasn't coming in, and we ended up losing the house, and we were evicted. And the fridge was thrown out with the potato in the freezer. And she said, but when I saw your image, it brought my husband back to life, which I didn't know I was capable of bringing people back from the dead. It's important in a sense. It's a little silly, that story, but I struggled coming from the world of science and technology. When I made that decision to become an artist, I asked myself, is this a narcissistic endeavor? Is it as noble as being a scientist or an educator? And people would say, oh no, artists, they bring great joy to the world and great value to people. And there was a time when I struggled to see that. Through the photographic work, by the way, portraits of people, they're not for sale. They never have been, and they never will be. And that work, which I deem rather sacred, is something that I have to do. For instance, frequently I'll photograph a woman's father. It doesn't happen. This has never happened with a man's mother, but I'll photograph a woman's father, and they will come and tell, after disappearing for 2 weeks, they'll get back to me and say, some variation on this theme, I'm sorry I didn't get in touch with you earlier, but when I saw the picture of my father, I was taken aback. I've never seen him like that before. In fact, I couldn't sleep for a week. It's usually something like that extreme, that dramatic. It's happened now a number of times, so I'm not surprised, but I know he's not a monster anymore. I'm not afraid of him anymore. And so, or I get people saying, that image that you have of me, I've always wanted to be that person, and now I know I can be. And so when you hear this enough, it really, I'm not a psychotherapist, but I've seen the transformational value in creating images of people in which you remove the mask of persona, identity, and reputation. You embrace vulnerability, the vulnerability that we all have, and when you embrace that vulnerability, it's a strength. I skipped the part where I was homeless, but That's kind of a dark period. I was homeless for a while. I lost everything. And when I came back to photography, this stuff I'm describing became a lot more potent. I removed myself even more from the equation, which is difficult when you employ photography because it's a contrivance. I always think that's funny, is I'm going for this thing called honesty. Let's get rid of that dollar sign for a second, or euro sign. You have this contrivance and you're trying to achieve something honest, and people come to the table with so many preconceptions about what they should or shouldn't be doing while they're being photographed. We are photographed actively and passively all day long, as we know. I shudder to think how many cameras we've been on in here today, but it's all positive. And so when you can momentarily get people out of their head so that they don't try to manipulate the moment, you end up with something rather special. So on the heels of all this hoopla about my potato, I thought I'm going to do something and move away from the work that I'm best known for. And I'm really going to try to get back to some work that I was working on earlier. So I turned to seeds. I had a project I decided was going to be called Utopian Propagation. I thought we burn everything to the ground and try to become more seed-centric. So at first I was doing some photography around seeds. Then I did installations. I was in the Museum of Modern Art in Reykjavik, Iceland. These were packages of seeds called Utopian Propagation packages. Some happy recipients. Each of these packages contains all the seeds you would need, say in the case of apocalypse, to propagate utopia. Utopia, which we know by definition does not exist, but it doesn't mean you can't move asymptotically towards this utopian ideal. And in this case, you also have the issue of these pieces being, in addition, works of art, which ostensibly have a value, but perhaps one day they have a lot more value if you rip them open and use the seeds. So I went around the world doing these site-specific installations, Museum of Modern Art in Bogota. They had found that they had these huge oil reserves. This is a project called Impossible Promises. They thought it was going to be the answer to all their prayers. The multinationals came in and invested heavily, but then the price of oil dropped and they all pulled out. And this is my ode to that reality. And you can probably see from above, people couldn't really appreciate this from below, but there's a code that speaks to my utopian project there. So now we come to 2018. Last year, without a doubt, most exciting year of my career, and that's why I'm here today, to talk about this. I just wanted to give a little bit of context, or a lot of context, and they gave me 45 minutes, a little bit of context to see how I became wrapped up in a discussion all over the world about how and why we value anything at all. So again, the attention was going from the artistic value of my work to the monetary value of my work, which, again, you have to feed the family, so it's not all bad, but it's not ideal either. And I thought, if I'm going to be commodified and I'm going to be treated in a sense like a currency, especially when you consider it's very difficult, I think, for some artists to separate the work from yourself. I suffer from this. And so I had been interested in blockchain technology conceptually, not really the use case for cryptocurrency, but just the idea of blockchain and the cryptography behind it as a method to make art. And I thought to myself, well, I'm going to tokenize myself. I'm going to figure out a way to control this narrative of commodification by creating a coin. So I called it I Am a Coin. There were 10 million crypto tokens on the Ethereum blockchain created. But I really wanted to tie myself somehow to it. My wife is a doctor, and she drew my blood. The contract address that's generated when you create a crypto token, I had a rubber stamp made with this alphanumeric, and I made a series of physical prints in my blood. not for shock value, but I wanted an emotional and logical connection. And just in the same way a cryptographic algorithm works in one direction, if you have a private key, you can deduce the wallet, but if you have a wallet, you can't deduce the private key. I felt that my physical artworks, the companion to the virtual artworks, which have no physical or visual manifestation, I felt that they could only have a meaningful existence thanks to the creation of the crypto token. Whereas the crypto token, of course, could exist in some meaningful sense without the physical work. Now, what happened was, to my surprise, a couple news outlets picked this up, and in the process of responding to the commodification of myself, I was very quickly recommodified because family funds from Qatar and Silicon Valley, venture capitalists and collectors in Hong Kong. I mean, some came forth clearly as speculators, and others came forth as collectors, and others couldn't understand how or why anybody would buy something that didn't have a physical or visual manifestation. Now, I'm guessing in this room, this might not be a problem. The first question is, does anybody here have experience in blockchain? Show of hands, just so I get a sense. Okay, so a fourth of the group? Okay. So blockchain is, for those not already infected by its technology, and I mean in the best sense of the word, it can be challenging, and people have a challenging are challenged with how they relate to things that they can't see or hear. So I would get people saying to me, "How can you call it art when you can't see or hear it?" Which is, come on, that's silly. I see or feel it or hear it or smell it. How can it have value? And some of the people that were asking me this, by the way, were cryptocurrency billionaires. I was in Japan with a fellow who made an awful lot of money with Bitcoin, and he couldn't understand how something that you couldn't hang on the wall could have value. And my usual go-to with that is, well, you value love and you can't put that on the wall. And then if they give me too much pushback on that, I say, I think you have potentially an unhealthy relationship with the physical. But it's interesting, and in the art world, I would explain that people would ask me and say, so wait a second, so you mean, what do I get? I get nothing? There's nothing to hold, nothing to see? Exactly. Wow, that's cool. But they don't understand why somebody would pump all their money into Bitcoin or Ethereum or any of these other tokens. And I always thought that's funny, that mechanically they're the same thing. But in any case, I started using these alphanumerics, these magical alphanumerics, which, as many people here know, I would imagine most people know, that they're generated with an algorithm. You can generate these, let's say, 42-digit alphanumerics all day long. I can do 1,000 a second for thousands and millions of years, and you won't have a duplicate. Does everybody get that? Does everybody? Yeah, okay, good. So early on, I was interested in them as how that it was interesting that I could create this seemingly infinite stream of stores of value. But I've told you about my love for the proxy. So I started to think of these numbers and letters as proxies. We all recognize certain numbers. You know your postal code immediately. You just recognize it. You don't think. You don't have to say it out. Or in America, 911 is emergency. You see it. It's just 911. Well, 42 letters and numbers might be a little bit difficult, but maybe in time, through evolution or augmentation, these codes can be instantaneously digested, and if connected to emotional value, that's a little bit trickier, could be potentially moved from machine to machine to very quickly. Especially if we're talking about sentient AI, potentially you could move emotional value very quickly. But that's not the point. The point is here, I never cared about cryptocurrency until I started getting paid in cryptocurrency. And when that happened, I saw quickly in social media, there was a tribe of people. We call them crypto bros. I even think women are crypto bros. But those who are out to gain tremendous wealth from cryptocurrency. And Lambo, hashtag Lambo, is code for Lamborghini. The Lamborghini, the fancy car, has become this symbol for success identity. And at first, I thought this was really vulgar. That's what you want to do? You want to make a lot of money and you want to buy a fancy Lamborghini? But then I realized that actually that's not it. It was more just a declaration to their tribe about the insanity, the zeitgeist around cryptocurrency. So if the Lamborghini was a symbol for success identity, I created a token called Yellow Lambo, because I think if you're going to have a Lamborghini, I think why shouldn't it be yellow? It's a good color. And I made one token. And that was a secondary proxy. And then I wanted to bring it back into the physical realm through a neon sculpture, also called Yellow Lambo. So it's sort of a tertiary proxy, triple distilled like a whiskey, if you will. And this was, I think, pretty well received. After that, these are all variations on this I am a coin theme. I posted onto social media. That's a wallet address on top, and underneath is a private key, which you usually don't give out because you don't want people to steal the contents of your wallet. And I warn on there that stealing the contents of this wallet is a crime. I happen to know that there is a criminal amongst us here tonight. He identified himself as being one who stole some of the contents of this wallet. What was in the wallet? Well, there were 100 of those I am a coins. And those are pieces of me. So I would actually posit that there was a kidnapping that took place. And they were all taken. But what's strange is that I expected them all to be sucked out immediately. Someone would be like, very quick, I'm going to beat everybody, just suck them all out, all 100 I am a coins. It's not what happened. It took 5 days. People played with it. People engaged with it. They took out 0.666 of a token, and some people even put some back. It was a really interesting experiment, which then led to an installation at the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg. This was called Personal Effects. These are wallet addresses that were printed on, stenciled on canvas bags, and inside those canvas bags are more of these I am a coins, but the private key has been thrown away, so they're inaccessible. They're sort of in purgatory. And when somebody dies, I don't know how you say in German, but personal effects is what's left, both of the possession, even the body sometimes. Now, you may notice a theme here, and it hasn't been lost on me. I see fantastic leveraging of technology, really clever and difficult leveraging of technology here in this exhibition. I don't think what I've done is particularly difficult, clever is for somebody else to say, but it's a rather lo-fi approach, I think, to leveraging technology. It's not the most practical, it's impractical, which is sort of it's the way I work. I'm using these little magical strings of codes in a rather low fidelity sort of way. So after a year of traveling around the world, being invited to the St. Petersburg Economics Summit and speaking with in Harvard and NYU and discussing what I had learned about how and why we value things and our complicated relationship, even with human life, and how I've said we come into this world, in a sense, like newly minted coins, perfect and priceless. But then immediately people try to ascribe value to us. They say that boy, he's full of potential, that girl, she's worthless. And they do this very easily, very quickly. But somehow, people have a difficult relationship with that which is priceless. Their own life of their friends and family, artifacts that have no price. They don't know where that fits in. I think we all agree. I've done this before, and I had an awful result. How many people here agree that life is priceless? That's good. It's the last time not one person raised their hand, so this is good. In Karlsruhe, they value human life. I had a phone call from famous artist, activist Ai Weiwei, who I'd collaborated with a while back, German resident, he lives in Berlin. And he said, I saw you in the New York Times, I read this article about what you've been up to, all this crypto art, and I read it 3-4 times, and I don't understand any of it. Would you please explain what the hell is going on? And so I did. So I came to Berlin, we sat down, explained the best I could over a period of time what blockchain was, how it worked, how it had the power potentially to empower people, and he said we should do a collaboration, and I agreed. I said, yeah, we should. I said, I've been thinking lately about people's complicated relationship with that which is priceless, including human life. His work, a lot of it lately revolves around the refugee crisis, the value of human life. And so I thought logically, if human life is priceless, then every moment, every moment, every little banal moment I turn my head, every little moment in all of our lives is priceless by definition. Even though it may be utterly forgettable or regrettable, it's all priceless. Obvious, right? So I thought we'll go forward with great intention and we will tokenize these priceless moments. Again, the concept of measuring, quantifying emotional value, that's a tough one. But nonetheless, we went forward with great intention and tokenized random moments. One of them is called walking in a carefree manner down Schönhauser Allee. Another one is called Fuck the Activists. Another one is called Sharing Tea. There's one here, I Am the Cryptocurrency, and another one's going to be showing here. And what we did was, we had these wallets. And these wallets were filled with a token called Priceless, of which there are 2. So you see, again, I like this idea of the companion, the virtual with no physical or visual manifestation, and the physical. But they're related because each of these wallets is inoculated with a nominal amount of the priceless token, of which there are 2. Only 2 tokens. And unlike the IAMA coins, of which there are 10 million divisible to 18 decimal places, there are only 2. One, absolutely unavailable for anyone, therefore priceless. It has no price. The other one, utterly available, not for sale, give it away. Anybody here, you want to email, I give you a nominal amount of priceless. I'll give you enough of the priceless token that you can share this art with pretty much everybody in the world, and probably in the world to come for the next few hundred years, because it's divisible to 18 decimal places. So I'll give you a billionth of this piece of art, and you will be able to share it to however many people you want. This is playing, essentially. This is what we do, I think, sometimes as artists, as we play. We play out these ideas. We see how the public responds to. Essentially, there are probably a lot of ways to communicate some of the same themes, but technology emerges, and in my case, I'm tempted to leverage it and see if that. This is an institution that's built upon that, but it's that. It doesn't always work. Technology and art don't always work out together well, but sometimes they do. People ask me, what's your next blockchain project? I may not do any more blockchain projects. I might have one left, but this is not, probably be talking for the rest of my life about blockchain, and I'm okay with that, but it's run its course. So here are a dirty couple letters. AI means different things to different people. My earliest forays into AI were with fuzzy logic, computer vision. I was trying to analyze pap smears, the test for cervical cancer early on. There was a lot of human error in reading pap smears, so I was trying to use electron microscopy and some machine learning to come up with better results, fewer false positives, false negatives. AI, KA, it's my initials. Aika is also a Japanese female name, and it's a horrifying picture of my face. I get asked a lot how I weigh in on the future of AI, and is it as dark and as gloomy as some suggest it could be? Is it as scary as they think it might be? And it gets me thinking about if AI wanted to scare you, what it would do. Not whether it's going to destroy the world, but if it wanted to scare you. And I thought, what if AI made a horror movie? Whatever that means. I'm not interested in some autonomous filmmaking script and seeing or creating an autonomous computer to write a script, but I am interested in it as a collaborator. And this is something I'm working on now. I'm about halfway through. And it's been one of the most horrifying experiences of my life. Deeply, deeply disturbing. It's my own doing. I've allowed myself psychologically to engage with technology in a spooky way. I identified a list of 50 of the scariest. I'm not even into horror movie, quite frankly, but I identified a list of 50 of the scariest movies of all time, and thousands and thousands and thousands of data points being ingested into 3 computers that I have at home, to surface suggestions on how we can effectively scare humans through a film. Not in any necessarily conventional way, but just to see what comes up. And this is not just visual; it's down to casting decisions. So Aika, the Japanese woman's name, it doesn't take a lot of ability to recognize patterns. If you look at the top 50 films, you know that there's going to be either a Chinese or Japanese girl in it. It's just the way it is. It turned out to be Japanese. I was sure it was going to be Chinese, but it was Japanese. And so there you go. That was the first thing actually I knew, that there was going to be a Japanese female lead. And then I decided to allow myself personal data and communications that I have with family and friends to also be ingested. I wanted to put myself actually in the film. Not because I had any aspiration to see myself acting, but I was available and somehow made it more personal. And this idea of it somehow makes a lot more sense to me when I look at you, and I have this issue about, are we just reflections of each other? Where do I end? Where do you begin? Even with objects. But I had never had that thought about with AI. Where do I end and where does the AI begin? And I make a long story short, I did, and it was quite disturbing, because the type of insights that were surfaced through this process of collaborating, not relying upon, but collaborating with the AI, it surfaced subtleties, nothing overt, nothing so overt that it was like, ooh, that's scary, but just over time, little things were happening, little things that I allowed to happen. But see, it's my own doing. It's not like this evil AI took over, and I was complicit in this dynamic. But in any case, I didn't go to therapy. A lot of people thought that I should go to therapy, and I'm past that threshold. And I've since disconnected all my data from Aika. By the way, the computer is also called Aika. So Aika is the name of the movie, Aika is the female character, and Aika actually is the name of the AI. Anyway, past that, it's all behind me. Just thought I'd let you know, because people ask me, what's next. And it's not blockchain. It's this scary horror movie, and a few other little things. But that's about it. Thank you.
Are there maybe questions or comments from the audience? Yes.
Oh, there is.
Hi. Are there any coins left? Here.
Are there any what left?
The coins in your wallet.
In which one?
The IM coin.
Ayama coin? Oh yeah. There were only 2 million of them are
So they're all
somewhere in the
gone?
world. No. There are 8 million left of the Ayama coins. Yeah.
I'll search.
Yeah.
Thanks.
7 million.
When and how will you present the AI movie? Is it like in the cinema or?
So the thing is, and this is something I have to struggle with all the time, there's this sort of, it would be easy for me to try to make a conventional film, try to make one. Whether or not I'm capable of making a conventional film, who knows? But I think it doesn't make sense for me to try to make a conventional film. So I'm allowing it to be rather unconventional. The only convention is it's probably going to, I think it'll be somewhere between 90 and 100 minutes. It will be two-dimensional, projected on a screen. There'll be video and sound. It will have the bones of a conventional film, but from what I have already, I have about 20 minutes of it cut. And I've had also, the editing a lot of that has been suggested. The sound design, the editing, a lot of that is me kind of hands off and just trusting. It's a funny thing. Where will it be shown? Who knows where it'll be shown? I mean, probably in museums and film festivals. We'll see. We'll see how scary it is. I mean, if it's really scary, I know there are people who like scary movies. So I also don't know, is it scarier in the cinema? Is it scarier on your computer? We'll see.
But it's actually only frightening for you.
Maybe.
Right?
So this is the thing. Is like I started to feel like I was not just the collaborator, but maybe I was being treated like the audience. But we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe I'll be the only one scared.
Ja, eine Frage.
Can you explain a bit what do you exactly mean by collaborating with the AI? Do you create the program yourself, the neural network, and feed it with your own data? Or you take pre-trained models, or what?
I use open source algorithms that I tweak a little bit, and yes, I feed it with lots of data. Yeah, adversarial networks, and yeah. Different flavors. I've combined all sorts of stuff, but I do not use TensorFlow in case anybody's interested.
Thanks very much. Conceptually, I found it really interesting. You're thinking around pricelessness of life, I think. What's the end of it? And you're coming with so basically what is the human finitude if you translate it into digital terms, if you want. But I'm coming from this, given that you were talking about cryptocurrencies, also from the weird thing about money, that quality equals quantity, which is the only thing. We don't have something like this in real life, physically, apart maybe from logic. If you have any spontaneous, like, thinking about the hard limits of it.
The hard limits of what? Of what?
Of both questions. So basically, quantity equals quality, and pricelessness, what is like the hierarchy of pricelessness?
I mean, I would imagine for most people the hierarchy of prices is human life. With these works, all of them, they pose hopefully more questions than they answer, and that's actually my goal, and that's why it was such a satisfying year, is because very quickly, like really quickly, the attention moves from the art into a discussion, a quality discussion around these things. These are questions that happen. But I'm thinking of a story, a fellow who's fabulously wealthy that I know, and he had an infected toe. And he could have easily made an appointment for the doctor and had that looked at, and everything would have been fine. But he didn't, and he didn't because he was in the middle of a project. He wanted to make even more money than he already had. This is seriously somebody who doesn't need any money. And he was so driven to make more money, to scale his business, and anyway, he ended up losing his toe. I mean, maybe toes do have a price tag. I don't know, but he actually didn't seem that maybe out of his own stupidity, he didn't seem that upset about losing a toe. But I see that kind of irrational behavior.
Maybe if I can just immediately reply, because I was coming from the rule of law kind of thinking around this. So you have human rights, of course, and then you have the right to have rights. So this is what I was thinking about in like the
right to have rights. Yeah, and I mean, and then you have those that are so, humans and groups of humans that are so devalued that there are those who treat them like commodities. And how you get out of that, I don't know. I mean, the Priceless project was about illuminating some of that. Not that it does need illumination. As long as the problem exists, it does. I don't think it's going to solve anything, but.
You talked about the polarity, the physical things and the non-physical things. In your movie, what scared you most so far? What you have seen or what you have not seen?
Right, that's a great question. It's what I have not seen, actually, in particular, because there were things that belonged to me, digital assets that belonged to me, that I wasn't. There were manipulations. There were small manipulations happening to digital assets that I had on my computer. And when I say assets, some of that were I consider the emails assets even. And there were things that were missing, or I thought they were. Is it missing? Did I delete that, or did I not? And these subtle manipulations that took a while for me to. It was just like a spooky sense that, like, is it really happening? It's impossible. It's because, and then these things were happening that I realized that I was being fucked with. Right? Sorry, that's all I can think of. I mean, it was kind of disturbing. I mean, and it got to the point where I just disconnected everything. I cut all those pipes and I cut them off because point was taken. I used what I learned from that experience and put it in there but the thing is, I'm always interested in the idea. Like, you take an app on your phone, and we know that frequently the app that, not necessarily the app that provides the most utility and value is the one that's the best seller, and that can happen for a multitude of reasons. But more often than not, it's those things that you don't know. Why am I keep coming back to this app? I like to be in this space, but why? And so, I mean, that's what's scary. It's when I, you like this, real loud, and you jump, okay, you immediately, you can draw the connections. You jump, that type of scare. But it's when you're scared, when you have that feeling of doom, when you have that feeling that something is wrong, when you have that feeling you're being manipulated, or wondering if you are, and that's truly, truly scary. And that's what I'm thinking. But see, now here's an interesting thing. I would imagine the audience of something like this, if they watched it and thought that a human made the whole thing, they very well might think, what is this? Like, they can't make sense of it, some of it. But if you know that some of it was created by an AI with the intention of scaring you, then every moment might be some sort of manipulation. And that's also scary. And it's engaging. Yeah. So it's about what you don't see or sense even, a cumulative effect sometimes, perhaps. It's an experiment. I'm still figuring it out myself.
Are there further questions or comments? All right. So thank you again very, very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming. And you still have the chance to enjoy the exhibitions, the collection exhibitions in the first floor, Writing the History of the Future. And here, open codes on the ground floor, still until 8 o'clock. Thank you very much. Bye.